Good day, Matthew. Great to see you again. Thank you very much for having Dr. Bill Pearson and myself on your show. We're pretty pleased with developments to date, and looking forward to talking to your audience about where we sit. We've had quite a price appreciation in the last few weeks in regard to our share price, share cap valuation. We were in a trading range from, $3.50 Canadian a share to, $4 for at least 7 or 8 months. And we finally broke through with some great results that our tech team, led by Dr. Bill and also Dr. Oswaldo Arce down at Iska Iska on site. Very, very pleased with the development and progress of where we sit. Dr. Bill will go through the significance, especially of the latest drill hole, one of the largest holes to date, probably the largest hole to date, over 375 meters at least 170 plus silver equivalent. However, we believe that's still open, but Bill can get into that. I think that's what's sort of opening things up, because now we're starting to see that this tin porphyry area could be actually, proving to be reality. So, everything seems to be moving well. The price of tin has done exceedingly well. I think it's close to $46,000 a ton right now. That's, over $21.5 a pound. We're coming in with, in some zones of our drilling, it's showing well over 0.4, 0.5, which is equivalent to 8-10 pounds of tin in what we call cassiterite deeper down. And, that translates into, $160 to $200 rock per ton valuation. It's quite, this has really nothing to do with our upper zone, the MRE area, being Santa Barbara, where we're working to come out with our inaugural MRE report, which hopefully we will see second quarter of this year.
Tom,
exciting times.
Tom. Thanks for some introduction and recap. I think just to remind people, we'll put a link below to the detailed technical analysis that we went through with Bill back at late October of last year. Please check the link below. That was a super interview. So Tom, before we get stuck into what's happened with Bill, you referenced it. You've been a really sharp uptick in the share price. I mean, it kind of looks like strange. I mean, it can't just be down to one hole. What's going on? Were you out there marketing, or have you got someone who's come in here? I mean, it's exciting times, but wow.
Well, again, the way our company has always been structured from a share cap scenario, we've always been very, very conscientious of the share count. We're at 63 million shares outstanding. We raised over 30 million. Well financed, no debt, still have in excess of 10 million in the bank, Canadian. And a very strong shareholder roster. And I do believe that, a lot of the legacy shareholders at much lower prices probably sold a lot of their positions over time. And that's why I sort of discussed this sort of 8-9 month channel between $3.40, $4. Some people get a little impatient. The assay results that was frustrating for all of us because of the lab backup issues with COVID. That's now changed. We're dealing with a lab ALS, finishing lab in Galway, that are now picking up the slack for us. So we're starting to get more news, and more news flow is getting the Eloro name back out there. So, look, people are realizing that there could be a second MRE, a tin-based MRE coming out. We would call our first one in the upper area domain 1, and the tin potential domain 2 deeper down. And the sheer size potential of this system is now being realized, that where we discussed empirically about it for many months, it's starting to show, it's that this could be reality. So yeah, I think people are starting to realize how undervalued this company is.
But the tight share structure helps for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, when we had the conversation back in October, and we kind of got into it, you talked then about the scanner and IP server and the need for that. The need for it for a couple of reasons. One, to kind of establish the grade and potentially also help with the scale of the opportunity in front of us. So in terms of what's happened since October, what do we need to know? A lot of drill results out, some good grades in there, but so what? What do we make of it?
Well, what we make of it is it's given us that encouragement to become even more aggressive in moving forward and start drilling these deeper targets underneath the upper edifice of this of Iska Iska. And so we've mentioned to the market that we're bringing in a third surface drill. So we'll have 4, 1 underground, 3 surface drills, and we're now aggressively advancing. This is Dr. Pearson's sort of strategy. Yeah, build out the initial MRE, but keep the exploration going for bigger targets and bigger tonnage to prove up stronger, share cap valuation, to back up share cap valuation as we move upward, which I believe we will be.
Okay, so any sense of the timing of that new MRE?
Well, I'll leave that with Bill, but we're aiming for second quarter.
Okay.
Whether it's May, June, I don't, I'll leave that with Bill. There's a lot of work going on. We could delay this even longer because of the advancement, especially on one of the latest hole that's deepening this Santa Barbara area in closer to the tin, that magnetic target. But we're going to stick, I believe, with the initial parameters of what we've drilled out. That's illustrated on one of our slides. So, look at we're moving at the same pace. We resumed our drilling campaign in January. We've drilled over 4,500 meters since January. I mean, the pace is amazing with Leduc drilling. And so there's lots of news flow coming in. Dr. Bill needs those old assay results that were taking time for the initial MRE. We're starting to get all that data in. So we should get that MRE out second quarter of 2022, the initial upper level Santa Barbara area.
Well, that's fantastic news. Look, Bill, why don't we come over to you? Because I think one of the thoughts that came out of the last conversation was the fact that you, yes, need to understand the grade and potential scale of this with the exploration component still very much in the mix, but also the metallurgical distribution. So can you give us a little update on what you've learned since October through the drill bit?
Yeah, well, I think the simplest thing is, let me go through a few slides here because it's easier to explain to people with a little bit of visual. So, Amina, if you could pop that first slide up. So, as your readers are aware, or listeners, I've talked about this for some time. We're in this really remarkably huge Caldera complex here. And my exploration philosophy, and as same as for Osvaldo, is we've always focused going along here on understanding the system, because if you understand your mineralizing system, then you get more and more efficient at targeting holes. So, 15, 16 months ago, we started out with initial drilling here in the Walrus Chasm portal. We did some surface drilling. We've done underground drilling from Santa Barbara. We've done some step-out drilling around here. And at the start, we had a few intersections here and there. But now what's happening is with more drilling, with more geophysical work, with more geological modeling. We're starting to develop a much, much greater understanding of the enormous scale of this whole system, but also in the distribution of metals. So this gives you a sense of the lay of the land here. Our big target over here in Santa Barbara. There's excellent potential, as I'll show you, down under the Porco area. But when you stand back and look at this thing, you have a massive volcanic edifice that probably this system goes for some 4 kilometers on a long strike, about 2K wide, and probably extends more than a kilometer at depth. The remarkable thing about Iska Iska is that the entire volcanic system is preserved, and you have all these huge breccia pipes, these massive explosive features that have not really been identified anywhere else in Bolivia. So there's some unique characteristics to Iska Iska, but at the same time, when you look at the metal distribution, the types of metals, etc., a lot of commonality with its more famous neighbors in southern Bolivia. Go to the next slide. This is a general overall geological map of the caldera. So you can see this main caldera in the middle, and then you can see a couple of secondary ones, one to the southeast and one to the northwest. This red dotted area is the focus for our initial mineral resource estimate. So that's where we're drilling. We've got pretty good drill coverage in right now. We're starting to get a lot more assays together. And we have this big Santa Barbara breccia pipe, which is about 800 meters by 500. Central, which is more of a tin silver target. And this Porco area, which, as I'll show you, is looking like a very, very tantalizing target. And while our focus has been this mineral resource area, the recent results we had from DSBU 3, some of our other holes, indicate that you can basically pull this whole thing down and bring it down right under the Porco area. And the one thing that's really important to notice at Iska Iska is the scale of the system here. You can see the bars here, 2.5, 2K. This thing is huge. This target area that we're doing our definition drilling in is 1,400 by 500 wide by 600 meters deep. So everywhere you go in the system, everything is well mineralized and huge. Next slide. Now this is one of my favorite sections because all through my career, I've always tried to capture the essence of a project in a slide, in a drawing. And to me, this is the one that really jumps out. You can see that this is a longitudinal section right through our definition drilling area, right down through Porco to the south. And this is our magnetic inverse model. Now, you can see the green up here. There's oxide sulfide. This green area, everything's leached. And that's the reason why historically this deposit was never discovered, because if you sampled at surface, you didn't get anything. The other thing was the style of mineralization wasn't like Cerro Rico. Cerro Rico is God's gift to artisanal miners because everything occurs in narrow veins or vein breccias, whereas here, this is very much a bulk tonnage type system. So you can see that the magnetics indicate that there's likely a giant tongue up here. So it's rooted down here in a tin porphyry. And of course, the exciting part of DSBU-3 was all of a sudden we're into a huge tin intersection. So our prediction of a potential tin porphyry down here driving this whole thing is looking more and more better every day. And of course, there's a large anomaly in the Porco area, and most of our drilling in Porco was too shallow to hit this. We also have some tin silver in central, And up in Santa Barbara, you can kind of think of that as the frothy top of the system. And you can see here, this is where we're getting silver, zinc, lead, and tin. But as we get deeper down here, we lose the zinc and lead. We still have some silver, but the tin starts to become more and more dominant. And down in the Porco area, like in the Porco adit, all of a sudden we start getting gold and copper mixed in with silver and tin. The Porco adit, which we sampled over 100 meters at 0.6610, quite extraordinary. In fact, I picked up a vein sample in there. It was about a foot long, must have weighed 30 kilos. You could use it in your weight room. So, and then the basement here is Ordovician quartz sandstone, which is not magnetic. So this is an important image to have in your mind of how we think this Iska Iska complex developed. So in our initial drilling, we're concentrating in the top, which will be our initial mineral resource. But now we're starting to move down into this system and really starting to validate our magnetic inversion model and our geological model that, hey, there's a big tin porphyry down here somewhere driving this whole thing. Next slide. So this is a more detailed map showing the drilling we've been doing. Initially we started out with radial drilling, which was great at the start because we didn't know where anything was. We have now moved to sectional drilling here. You can see we've done a number of 100-meter space sections here, really right through the whole part. And this is giving us a much better feeling for the continuity of the mineralization. And we also have done a lot of downhole IP. The thing is that when you have sulfides, you get a very strong, what's called a chargeability effect. And when you look at the different profiles down the holes, and we're doing two kinds of downhole IP. We're doing actual measurements down the hole, which will let you see maybe 25, 50 meters off the hole. And we're also doing cross-hole measurements that give you an idea of the distribution across the hole. And what the IP shows you is this is one giant continuous body in terms of electrical property. So even though you see some variability from hole to hole, when you stand back and look at this whole thing, it's really remarkably continuously mineralized. So DSBU-3, which is another signature hole, and it's interesting, it comes 1 year after we put out our first big hole, which was DHK-15. That was drilled off the west end of Wauwakaza, southwest. That was the one, our big hit, where we had 129 gram silver equivalent over 257 meters, which incidentally, adjusted to current prices, is about 171. That's how much the value has increased. So a year later, we suddenly got DSBU 03. And what 15 showed us was, wow, this Santa Barbara breccia has huge potential. And what DSBU-03 shows you, which I'll show you, is there's more to that than just the frothy top of that magnetic model. Next slide. So I want to just show you a slide here that gives you a sense of the remarkable distribution of metals here. You can see the full presentation on our website, which gives the details of our top 12 intercepts. But this is a nice visual presentation that shows you the relative importance of the metal components here. So we have four major metals here. We have silver in the red, tin orange, zinc purple, lead and red. We have gold kicks up here and there, and we have some other, which is mainly things like bismuth, cadmium, copper. So you can see how important tin is in certain holes, especially the deeper ones. Like this is DSBU-03. by far our biggest intersection. And you can see what an enormous portion of the value tin is. There's some lead and zinc in the upper part of the hole, but tin dominates. Now, if you go to our discovery hole, DHK-15, you can see that tin is less important, but zinc suddenly is very, very important. And then we have holes like DSBU-07, which is in Santa Barbara, where silver becomes quite important. So there's quite a bit of zonation here, but when you stand back and look at the overall picture, that frothy top in Santa Barbara basically is a silver, zinc, lead, tin polymetallic system. And when you get deeper down into DSBU-3 and environs, all of a sudden you're losing your lead and zinc, and you're looking at primarily tin with some silver. So as Tom mentioned, while we've been focusing on the Santa Barbara area, the exciting thing about DSBU-3 is it's starting to open up the fact that this tin porphyry that we've been talking about for a long time, but in a more theoretical sense, all of a sudden we're starting to get the drilling evidence that this magnetic model, the inverse model, is actually seems to be a very accurate predictor where major tin mineralization. So you're looking at two projects in one. We're finishing off, and actually for the most part, just waiting for assay results from Santa Barbara, and then we're shifting our focus towards defining this really exciting tin opportunity. Next slide. So here's a cross section here that shows DSBU-3 here, drilled at -50 to the west. We also put out some very good numbers earlier on DSBU-1, which was drilled to the east here. So you can see if you look at the purples are greater than 110, and actually the grades here are much higher than that. You can see there's a very, very high grade area. And if you look at down south in the Porco adit, which we released in the fall, this is channel sampling, and the Porco adit is 200 meters south of where we drilled. It's actually in the sediments adjacent to the system, but you can see the incredible mineralization. These are pictures I took when I was underground in November. You can see the massive sulfide here. You can see the stockwork, obviously, with lots of copper. And look at these grades from channel sampling, 117 grams silver, 1.44 gold, 0.54 copper, and a remarkable 0.66 tin for overall 520 grams silver. So again, from a geological point of view, this is telling me when I get down to the south end towards Porco, I still got a massive, massive mineralized system, which I barely tested. Next slide. Now, this is the drawing that really, really is very exciting. And when I've showed this to people, they start to realize the magnitude and importance of DSBU-03. So this is the inverse magnetic model. This is calculated from the surface data. There's quite an involved mathematical process that goes through, but essentially what this model does is create a model that is the best fit for which likely generated the magnetic pattern you see on surface. So you can see DSBU-03, this hole is drilled west. I'm looking southeast in this drawing. You can also see our Porco radial holes here, and you can see obviously that these were short. In fact, there's only one hole, DPC-01, that clipped the edge of the model, and lo and behold, that was where the best values came in. But you can see that DSBU-03 went through the northern tip of this thing. You can see the purple here, which is so high. And what was really exciting for us is our big intersections in here, especially the high-grade part we reported, well, that's right in where this purple is. So in essence, this is kind of like the tip of the iceberg here. And you might ask, well, why is the tin showing up as being magnetic? Well, there's only two magnetic minerals. Magnetite is one and pyrrhotite is the other. You certainly don't get magnetite in this environment. It's a very high sulfur environment. In the upper part of Santa Barbara, where you get tin and silver and lead and zinc, that's associated with pyrite, which is non-magnetic. So the Santa Barbara part doesn't show up in this magnetic model because it's not magnetic. But as you get deeper down and we lose the zinc and lead, and we still get some silver, but not as much. But tin goes up dramatically. The sulfide changes to pyrrhotite. So we see pyrrhotite when we get high-grade tin mineralization. And one of the remarkable things about DSBU 03 is we actually had samples in that hole that were up to, highest was 4.1% tin, which is remarkable. In fact, the sample next to it had 3.05%. So you can see why this is so exciting. And you can say, well, yeah, it's a magnetic model. You know, they have their, they have their limitations. But when I see something like this, and we planned this hole to cut through our magnetic model here, and bingo, we're getting our values exactly where we expected them. We get the best stuff in DPC 3 where it clips this model. It's giving us a lot of confidence that this model is a pretty good predictor of the potential for tin mineralization. So right now I have a hole, it's collared downhill from our radial drill platform to go through the guts of this thing to see what we get through the middle. And the intent will be, we'll do some more step out holes, because the more I can validate this model, the more potential here I have to show that this has got the potential to be a true tin giant. And I think this realization amongst people I've talked to and have read the press release is why the stock price has jumped. We're on the edge of something I think has the potential to be very, very special. The other thing, too, you got to remember is when we say, oh, this is deeper, remember, I'm in this amazing volcanic edifice. There's 1 kilometer from the valley to the peak. So even though I'm deeper, I'm still above the valley. So if you look at a future mining scenario, you could easily come in from an adit on the side of the hill and do this from underground. So Iska Iska has taken a very interesting turn in the last few weeks. Essentially, we're looking at 2 major, huge deposits. We have the silver tin polymetallic in Santa Barbara. We will certainly produce a significant mineral resource there. We're going through I've got lots of work going on there. We're doing metallurgical testing. We've got a structural study going. We're doing modeling of the downhole IP. Essentially, every tool we can throw at this thing to better understand the nature and distribution. You mentioned the scanner originally. That should be down on the property by the end of March. We're currently working on calibrating the AI in it, because it will be enormously useful in mapping out the mineral and metal assemblages, and that will strengthen our resource model.
Bill, how long will the scanner be in operation for? What's it going to take? 2-3 months?
I don't think it'll ever leave Bolivia. It'll just stay there.
Okay. But in terms of like getting that first picture for you, how long are you going to run it?
Well, it'll run 24 hours a day, and we'll just the goal eventually is to scan everything.
Okay. Okay.
because it's the scanning technology has evolved immensely in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, from being sort of an interesting sort of conceptual concept to being reality. And what's really exciting is that we've done quite a bit of analytical work. We used a procedure called the synchrotron. We're also doing a very high-end mineralogical studies at STS. So we can put all that information into the artificial intelligence there, which will help out map out the distribution of metals here. And and more so than we can do from, sort of conventional logging, which gives you a good base. So that'll be up and running, the end of March. The metallurgical sampling or testing is in progress with Blue Coast.
And Bill, let's explain that to people as well, because I mentioned at the beginning, which is about the metallurgical distribution, and you've mentioned, this is two projects in one a couple of times during the explanation here. So the metallurgical distribution is important because why? Does it tell you how you eventually mine this project, or what's the importance of knowing it now?
Well, it's a critical element as part of your resource estimation, because to define a National Instrument 43-101 compliant mineral resource, you have to show that your metals have the potential to be recovered. So firm definition is, and we're looking here largely at it's an inferred resource, because obviously our drilling is relatively wide spaced at this time. So there's two key factors. One, it has to have economic potential. And in order to assess that, you need recovery. So, it's fine to say, hey, I've got whatever percent metal there, but can I recover it? So we're doing that work. There's certainly no doubt that from the geology and the geophysics, we have the geological continuity. The other thing that's a prime factor is, and it was recently changed in 43-101 in 2019, it has to be an inferred resource that you reasonably expect most of it can be upgraded to indicated with further drilling, which is certainly the case here. Now, interestingly, one of the samples that I put into the metallurgical testing, we did several. We used hole 15, which is in the mineralized breccia. We used hole DHK 18, which is in the mineralized envelope. And I put in a third hole, which was DSB 6, which is a deep hole from our radial drilling platform on Santa Barbara that was drilled at -80 to the south. And it had an intersection in there of 0.43 grams, 4.43% tin over 73 meters. Now, at the time, that intersection to me seemed to be out in left field. Like, where the heck did this come from? Well, after getting DSBU-03, it's pretty obvious that we're on the northern tip of this massive tin zone. So the metallurgical testing we're doing on that at Blue Coast will give us a pretty good indication of the tin, because the mineralization is fairly similar. We also drilled a couple of metallurgical holes. We put the results out of one, our second met hole, which was very, very good, continuously mineralized over 303 meters. So I'm very confident that our samples will give us a good idea on metallurgy. So once I get all the drill assay results, and as Tom mentioned, they're starting to come back with much more regularity, which is great.
How many are outstanding?
I think we have about 13,000 meters outstanding now, but that's pretty good considering I went into the new year with over 15. I did 5,000 more meters of drilling and my list shrunk. So that's a good sign. And,
Okay.
the last couple of releases have been 5 or 6 holes, except obviously for DSBU 03. So that's a good sign. So I'm not worried anymore about getting the numbers back. We certainly will get that. I have Mike on going over the model, because one of the things I want to see is to figure out how to interpolate it, but also look is there areas where we need to stick a few more holes in. We still have time to do that.
Right.
And having the extra drill gives me, sort of more flexibility.
Absolutely. So 3 on the surface, 1 underground. So with regards to, people are asking about, obviously the MRE, the main resource estimate. You will be looking at some potential infill drilling and some expansion drilling for that. Is that right? Can you tell us about the type of drilling?
Well, I think we probably have pretty good coverage.
Okay.
But basically what we'll do is an internal model to figure out where we are, and I would characterize it more as where there are opportunities to put a few holes to expand things, because really we still have, it's such an enormous target that although we've got pretty good coverage, especially in the eastern part of the Santa Barbara pipe, we'll make that assessment. I still have some time to stick a few more holes in if they'll make a big difference. But,
absolutely. And the money.
Certainly, we're okay in terms of money right at the moment. I think we have about, 12 million or so in the bank, Tom?
10, 11. Yeah.
Yeah.
10, 11.
So we're our burn rate has been pretty consistently around $1 million US a month. It'll obviously go up a bit with the additional drill, but not substantially. So, I've done a lot of resource work over my career, and the trick is rather than doing your drilling and then going and doing your resource and hope you covered off things, is I work closely with whoever's doing the resource. We figure out how to interpolate it and figure out, if there is areas we need to stick a hole in, we will. The other thing that helps us immensely is the geophysics, because one of the key parameters is there reasonable geological continuity between holes? Well, geologically, it's pretty obvious there is, but the geophysics really amplifies that, because instead of just looking at your drill core and your assay, all of a sudden you can get a 50 to 100 meter radius around the hole. And certainly everything I've seen from the geophysics so far indicates electrical continuity is excellent, which is telling you the sulfides are there all over the place. And if you look at resistivity, which of course is the measurement of a resistance to current, there's virtually no resistivity because there's sulfide everywhere. So this is an absolutely remarkable system. I've worked in this business for 47 years. I've run major programs in 18 countries. I've worked in every province except PEI. I've worked in all sorts of systems. I've had some big successes, like big extension at Jacobina. But I have never, ever worked on a system where after 80 holes, we have had not one blank hole. Every drill hole has multiple reportable intersections. In fact, the last couple of press releases, I've been splitting up the table because the result tables are so long that, it's really, really remarkable. And one of the things I comment on is, we've got lots of 20, 30, 40 meter, 70 meter intersections that nobody pays any attention to. Well, most projects, that kind of intersection, people would die for, so this is an absolutely remarkable system, no question about it. But the exciting thing about DSBU 3 is that we're starting to get the proof that the concept we've been talking about for ages is suddenly shifting more towards a reality. And it's obviously a no-brainer if we can validate our magnetic model. Hey, that's mapping out where this potential tin porphyry is. We're off to the races. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Tom, it sounds like it's time to go and acquire some more land.
So we did acquire, we have, I believe, 8, 9 other properties that we basically did we're about to commence on some geophysics on those properties. We did an aster survey, I think about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, and did pick up some very interesting signatures and have locked some of those up. Believe me, we are very well sort of endowed with other properties close by. But Iska Iska is where our focus is. And, there's just so much new information, it seems almost, bi-weekly coming out with this. But to answer your question, we have other land.
Good. Well, Tom, appreciate the update, guys. I'm just sort of conscious of time here. Stay in touch. Let us know, especially if it's more results like you've been seeing recently. This project keeps giving and giving. So we will see you soon.
Matthew, thank you again for your support and your. It's been very helpful. You've been there since the beginning. After our drill campaign, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All the best.